wax kind. They changed brands since the person did that, so I was going crazy looking for Future Wax, and they said, oh, the one that says like Future Wax and the little tiny bubble on it is the same thing. I'm like, oh, thanks. Works wonderfully. So we got our bracers, and then I wanted to make some boots for him. So I started with, you can't really see them in here, but there's a $3 pair of beige deck shoes in here that I picked up at Walmart. So cost-wise, you know, $7 for craft foam, $3 for shoes, $1.90. Well, no, it's $1.99 on your fabric. It was $2.50 on the other ones. That's not too bad. So what I did was I took the shoes and then I cut out craft foam to kind of vaguely make a shoe shape, and I glued it on, and it looked really ugly and really funky, and it was bright green and pink, and they're like, oh, Mom, that's stupid. It's like, thanks. And then I took some of my fabric strips that were left over, and I started painting them on there with the Mod Podge stuff. So you can kind of see, if you look close, these are really rough. And with that, it helped to make a finish for it so that the boots became stiff, because I wanted to look kind of like monstrous armor sort of stuff. And that helped it get the thickness that it needed, so it's not going to tear when it goes on. So did layers of that, and then just like I did on the bracers, I made these up here, and I got it all painted, and then I glued the toes on separate. So starting with those really humble beginnings, I got a really interesting pair of boots. And then, so those were materials that I probably wouldn't have really thought about using before, but they worked out really, really nicely. Another one, here's our Loudred, again, and that'll go with his over here. I got to thinking about, you know, well, he's got these speakers kind of things, and this is craft foam again. I cut out circles, and then I cut out a band, and I hot glued it together. And this has wire down the middle, and then I used pieces of craft foam here to kind of stabilize, and this is craft foam. And if you look inside, you can kind of see the original hat. And I stuck the wires through, and so that they wouldn't stick in his head, I glued craft foam again. And then lots and lots of layers of Mod Podge, layer it, dry it, layer it, dry it, layer it, dry it. And then the paint, couple layers of that same kind of paint thing. And then, again, varnish over the whole top of it. And then this I sewed, and then I glued it on so that that'll look like his face and his mouth once he's got it on. So those were kind of different things. And again, nothing super expensive about that, nothing super complicated, just figuring out what are my pieces and how do I put them together so that they look like this creature that it's really this sort of funky dinosaur looking thing.
Dinosaur.
Yeah, I don't know, he's kind of dinosaur.
No.
I don't know. He's funky. So a lot of really simple materials can transform into really amazing things. I've seen people, the person who was doing the seminar before this, she has a tutorial and thing where she made armor out of old for sale signs, like you buy at Walmart to put, you know, house for sale or garage sale, that plastic. She turned into the most amazing armor. We've made interesting things out of just cardboard that we've glued and painted, of course, fabric, wire, duct tape. Yeah, I've seen some really cool costumes that people put together completely out of duct tape.
Like that one I think it was here last year, actually.
Yeah. And was anybody here last year and saw the giant duct tape dragon? That was amazing. Yeah. That rocked. Another thing to remember is don't be afraid to make mistakes. You know, if you're really worried about making mistakes, something that I'll do is, like if I'm trying to make up a pattern and I'm not sure what I want to do, I cut it out of newspaper. And then I tape the newspaper together like I would have sewed it. And that way, if it looks horrible in newspaper, I haven't wasted any money at all. Because I'm even nervous about, I don't want to cut into even dollar fabric and destroy it too much. I'm kind of nervous about that stuff. So I just make it out of paper and then go, like that, don't like that, change this, change that. So just make a paper, and sometimes I'll even make a tiny one first, like a tiny little Barbie size one, and go, that's how that goes together. Okay, you know, don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to play with it. And if it doesn't look good, you scrap it and you do another one. If you've done paper, there's not really any loss other than you learned another thing not to do. And that's how you learn from things, is you make mistakes. Like my kids here always go, well, Mom, I can't sew like you do. Well, you know, my mom handed me thread and things and put me on the sewing machine when I was 8. So, you know, a few years will make a difference.
What's real your machine? Does I can't sew it?
You can get on her machine.
Mom, do you want to success and let me know when this is going?
Don't you love family? Okay, so here's an example of how we went about making one of our cosplays, which actually nobody's wearing this one right now.
No.
seen at the rave last night? It was Squirtle. My daughter says, I want to do Squirtle. I like Squirtle. So there's Squirtle. So we looked at different Squirtle pictures. There's like a little cool girl Squirtle. There's kind of a, I don't know what that one on the top would be called, but it's kind of more sophisticated. And there's kind of a little girl Squirtle, and she went, oh, I want to be rave Squirtle. Okay, maybe not quite like that. But she said, I want to be pretty rave Squirtle. And we sang, I'm a pretty rave Squirtle. And tried to come up, and I didn't want it to look exactly like that, but I really like the idea. I like the shape, I like the colors. You know, there's a lot of really cool things about that one. So we were like, okay, we're going to make a rave Squirtle. So the first thing we did was we started with the top. And we decided that I didn't want to necessarily go for the whole diamond shape thing. I didn't want it to look too turtle. So it still has kind of a shape where it's got a little bit of shell, and I use the brown to sort of represent the shell. In the back, she's usually got it covered with the backpack, but I use the brown again to kind of make it crisscross and then tie it. So it's got a little bit of detail there. You kind of see that I put the skirt together, and the skirt is pleated. And on each of the pleats, if you look on Squirtle's tail, it's kind of got that shape to it, sort of a wave shape. So I embroidered the wave shape on every single one of the pleats, so we kind of pick up that pattern. You can see the things down together there. So there's the shirt and the skirt. And then the shell was probably the most complicated thing, and I wanted it to be a backpack, because you know when you're at a con, you always need a place to stick your stuff. So I thought it needs to be a backpack, so we just kind of, I said, okay, this is what I need. She's my artist, so I made her draw the outline. And you can see I cut out that outline, and then we cut out a second one that I made a little bigger, and I just drew the shell pattern on that, and then I cut it apart and sewed it together, so that we ended up with a little bit of shape to the shell. You can see the swirl motif on the tail, which I stitched inside. You see there, it's fully functional Velcro backpack. And starting to look like Squirtle. So it kind of comes together like that. And, oh, a wild Squirtle appears. And we did, for the hair, we made some of the, this is probably my first or second attempt at hair falls. And there they are in the wild. So I was pretty pleased with how that one turned out, because I think everybody looks at that and you know that is Squirtle. Some other ones. This is Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard. Here's our Chikorita, Bayleaf, Meganium group. And I know we don't have as much recognition on the Meganium, that's the boy version, but it's hard to do a girly looking dinosaur as a boy, so we kind of did that as our hip hop version, and I made it, you can recognize it by the colors. We picked up all the colors in it, and then he has the antennas on his hat, which Meganium has those yellow antennas, so it makes it much easier to recognize. So if you really know your Pokemon, it's pretty quick because of the antennas, but other people are like, what are you?
I'm a Pokemon master. I know her.
And then this is, yeah, Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise.
I love her.
And that coat was a pain. But what I like on Wartortle, when I did his shirt, you can't see it there, but I quilted the back of it so it has a shell quilted into it. And that way you can instantly see, oh, that's a shell. And he's got a tail that kind of hangs down. It has a pattern, but it blends in with the color of his shorts in this picture. And so we were kind of thinking of, we have our rave girl, we have our mercenary, and we have our tourist. So that's tourist Wartortle. And when he went out on stage, he goes like this. He's looking for something. And again, here's my shaman, and as you can see, she had two of these. This is our group that we had here. So, and that was pretty much all I had on this part, but I wondered, are there questions that anybody has, or there's a couple more things I can talk about, but if there's questions, I'm going to open that up first.
Don't be afraid. We don't reach out and fight. We're not that flexible.
I won't let it. Just gotta reach wrong.
I just not that flexible.
So,
Yeah.
I think, well, one of the things that we had kind of talked about, and I didn't get a chance to get into the presentation, was when you're picking a Pokemon, do you think it's better to pick one that somebody's already done before, or one that you hardly ever see? Do we have any thoughts about that? Who would want to do one that you've seen, like everybody does?
Like Pikachu, for instance. No offense.
I love it.
Well, I'm just gonna say is just do your favorite, which it was for me to do Pikachu. That was just because Pikachu is my favorite. It's not because everybody doesn't, or whatever.
I'm trying to convince her to do Cypress. It's because it's my favorite, not because it's company does. lot of people aren't really recognizing me because you don't see mine like every day.
I haven't tested not my favorite, but who are you?
Furret.
Who?
Furret.
He doesn't know his name.
Eccentric evolution.
So, yeah, and so, well, do you want to stand up a little bit? Sorry, if you don't mind me putting you on the fly and show people, like, this is why, because I see your ears. They look like furred ears. And now that you're standing up, do you recognize your baby?
Yeah, man.
See, isn't that awesome? Look at the furred stripes and the ears.
The tail.
Which I've actually had somebody say that fur would be a good choice for me.
Come get your candy.
Go,
No,
you go get it.
Yeah.
Go while you
So
still
that was
have
awesome. And so, yeah, and I think, like, sometimes people get disappointed, like, when we run around in the Ruganium, Bayleaf, and Chikorita evolution. Everybody recognizes Chikorita, everybody recognizes Bayleaf, and everybody goes, oh, you're Magnium. And she gets so mad. It's like, so, sometimes if you're with a group and you're the less recognizable, just be ready for that and know it's not really offensive. People don't mean to. It's just some of the Pokemon are more well known, and, you know, she loves her Ruganium, and so it gets worn a lot. So that would be the downside. If you really want people to recognize who you are, wear a recognizable one. You know, pick one that you like, definitely. If it's more, and if you don't care, just be who you are and laugh because people can't figure it out. Or you'll know they're a diehard fan if they know who you are. So I think those are important things.
I have a question. How do you make something that's like on the character, it's more 2D, look 3D without going crazy?
Like, can you think of an example?
Just like my ears. I couldn't really figure out how to get those to work out.
I guess some of it is like looking at that as, you know, what, like we've got, oh, I don't have Wartortle here. Do I have, yeah, you can see him on here. He's got the kind of ears, and from that one, I just made them quilted, so they kind of stuck out, and I put them on a hat so they wouldn't have to be on something else. So yeah, a lot of them have those ear things, and I've seen, like we saw in here, they were represented by maybe hair bows, or designs on a hat, or I've even seen them done as earmuffs. And then just putting something different on the earmuffs. You can even probably just buy the structure of an earmuff, take off the bulk of the outside part, and then put your thing on it. And that can kind of help with that. I think being a seamstress, quilting sometimes gives it that 3D feel. Or layers and layers of craft foam. You can put, like I've seen some of the wings running around this weekend, and you've got craft foam, and then another layer of craft foam, and then in that way it kind of builds it out. So those are ways of doing that.
I have a question about the craft foam. Like, why use that specific material?
I like it because it's cheap, it's easy to cut, it's easy to shape. You can bend it a little bit into different shapes, like it doesn't have to stay flat. If you warm it up a little bit and curl it, it'll hold that. So if you want to make something armor, things like that. You know, making the same things out of, like, say, cardboard, it wouldn't be flexible at all. But craft foam has a little bit of flexibility to it, especially if you put the fabric on the back so that it doesn't tear.
I actually use that for the rim braces on this costume, but I learned that if you want to put like a rim like this around it, around something that's flat, to actually use window insulation.
Oh, cool.
Because it's a tube with a slit cut down all the way. You can buy it on Depot.
Which track?
So, yeah, so those are, and again, those are some of the properties of craft foam that I like about it, is it's a pretty flexible material. But if you wanted something to be, say, more sturdy, you might go for something like the plastic vinyl that they make signs out of. You know, for something like a sword, it's not going to work because it's going to be too flexible. For something like that, you might want more like foam core, cardboard even, all those kinds of things. So, any other questions or?
Why did you choose Pokemon as an example?
Because that's one of the most common ones, and that's what I know best.
And it's awesome.
Because Digimon, I never watched it. I kind of jumped over that era, so I never got to see those. So yeah, I think I was busy with college at that time. So I know they exist. I just don't know them very well. I know somebody who does skyscraper Gijinkas. They post a great link on cosplay.com about their skyscrapers, and they're really fascinating. I think they're a little too obsessed. It's a little frightening. They make the most incredible, and she'll show these. Here's the building, and here's this, and you're like, that is. If you knew that building, you would know what that was.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you were at the recon or picnic that we have at Naka-Kon holds in the summer, but there was a girl there who did a gijinka of Neon Cat. She had a candy bikini with the Pop-Tarts on it, and then she had a rainbow skirt
Aww.
and cat ears.
Very cool.
Which actually I'm copying that.
Very cool.